Welcome to Father and Son, and welcome to you, Tom.
Morning, Dad.
Well, we had a miserable day on Saturday. The weather's been atrocious over the weekend, but we got a great election result, and now, of course, the weather's starting to improve.
Well, I think even Ted Bailey probably wouldn't claim credit for that. Actually, just speaking of the weather before we talk about politics, there's been some pictures of some of the dams around Lake Eppalock and places like that here in Victoria. There's floods everywhere. So at the same time we're spending billions on a desal plant, we've got more water than we've seen in over a decade. So it's just funny how that happens.
Well, I've already raised with Ted the idea that they might be able to stop the desal plant. If there's any loophole in their contract, they should. And that would give them the wherewithal to spend the capital needed on the train system.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, obviously we have a new government in Victoria, slim majority. It's probably going to be 45 seats to 43, although there's an outside chance it could widen with all the pre-poll votes.
And we could win Macedon. We're only 200 behind.
Yeah, but I guess the big issue now, and the question that's already going to be asked is, okay, well, what will a new government in Victoria do differently? Now, there are all sorts of claims about law and order. Stamp duty in Victoria will now be halved for first home buyers over the next 4 years. But when it comes to issues like improving public transport, for example, these require massive amounts of investment. And even though Victoria's finances are in good shape, Dad, and it has to be said that credit has to go to the previous government at a time when government finances around the world have been under stress. For a non-mining state like Victoria to have a small budget surplus is a good achievement.
Well, except they've gone from, they've now got over 30 billion in debt, which is not great.
Well, they don't, but therein lies the problem. There is a lot of debt, there are public-private partnerships, but it's not going to be easy for the new government to just wave a magic wand and get new train lines, new trains, new stations, this, that, and there's going to be a demand list from various groups as long as you're armed.
Yeah, but I think, talking to him on Sunday morning, he thinks that the rail is the most important matter. Mm. And if you look at where the seats fell, they're all on the Frankston train line.
That's true, the southeastern Melbourne.
There were 5 seats there that the Liberals picked up. And obviously law and order, I think that's the other one. Safety on the streets, they're going to be 2 major things.
Well, many people are saying that Police Commissioner Simon Oberland won't last more than 6 months in his job now.
Well, I see the Deputy Premier, the leader of the National Party, he's the Minister, he'll be the Minister for Police. He's denied that, straight out.
Well, but you might find that Oberland just conveniently resigns at some stage.
Well, I don't know. I heard Oberland being interviewed on the ABC yesterday, and he said, people got this all wrong. I work for whichever government is in power.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
Now, on a more national basis, what's interesting about this is, of course, we had a federal election just 3 months ago, and a big swing back to the Conservative parties, and Labor managed to hang on in power, although it's struggling to govern.
Labor picked up 2 seats in Victoria, and in fact, the vote of the Labor Party in the state is about 7% lower than it was at the federal election 3 months ago.
Well, that might say that people separate state and federal issues, but let's look forward a year or two. Now, New South Wales, as early as March next year, there'll be a state election, and it's a near certainty that Labor up there will be removed from office, and the coalition will be back in power. And of course, by mid-2012, now it's a way off, but then again, only 18 months, Anna Bligh's opinion ratings have gone down dramatically. Yep. And you could end up with the Liberal national government, as it is in Queensland's, in power as well. So what you would then have is the Conservative parties in power, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, WA, and Labor at state levels only in power, South Australia and Tasmania, and just hanging on at a federal level. So in the last couple of years, things have changed quite dramatically.
Dramatic change. Now, just going back to the state election, Tom, the other interesting thing now is the upper house. It looks like the Liberal National Party coalition will get 20 of the 40 seats for sure. The only one is there's 1 seat, or one of those areas where they elect 5 people in each, in 8 different regions, and that could either go to Labor, Liberal, or who's that guy who's...
Stephen Mayne is the person, shareholder activist Stephen Mayne. Well, that raised the interesting possibility that Baillieu could have slim majorities in both the lower and upper houses. Now, of course...
Well, we get a majority in the upper house. He's a much stronger position.
Yes. Yes, and that means that you know, whatever the program is going to be, he will be able to pass it. Now, Bailey has also said he wants Parliament to start sitting again, this is State Parliament, before Christmas. So who knows, maybe it's going to be like Kennett was in 92, 93, where they sit it all out, they get their reform agenda going early, and things really start to change. And I remember what it was like back then, and you know, maybe the same thing's going to happen here.
The difference in this election is that when Jeff Kennett won the election, the finances of the state were in disarray.
They were.
And he had to do some drastic cost cutting very, very quickly. I don't think Ted will act, I think Ted will act in a much more measured way, but he doesn't need to be quite as hard on the cost reduction. But that's going to be very interesting.
The other interesting thing to note, and again this has national as well as states issues and results, is of course the votes of the Greens. Now in 2006, the last state election, the Greens' first party preferred vote was a fraction over 10%. In this election, despite all the hoopla, it only rose 0.6% to 10.6%. Of course, the Greens won no lower house seats. There was talk that I think Labor campaigned very heavily in Richmond, Melbourne, Northcote, and one of the other inner city seats, Brunswick, that's right, was seen off the Labor, the Greens challenge. So I think for the Greens it was a disappointing election because they got a lot of publicity, but in 4 years their vote has not gone up hardly any amount at all.
No, I think it was amazing. I think it was a very good result from that point of view, and obviously Ted, by deciding not to give his preferences to the Greens but give them to the Labor Party, this cut out any chance they had of winning a lower house seat. But they didn't get enough votes.
No, they didn't.
They may lose one upper house seat.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I mean, the Greens can complain and say, oh, well, you know, the big party's ganged up on us. But their first preference votes hardly moved. And the first preference vote is where people say, I support you first over everybody else. That is the most important measure of a party's popularity, and the Greens didn't succeed. And I think what's happening here is, I mean, there's obviously going to be massive debate and possible recriminations within the Labor Party about what went wrong. And you know, but there's a lot of people saying Labor needs to get back to its core values of worrying about suburban families and their concerns, and being less concerned with sort of inner city, trendy environmental issues, gay marriage, and that sort of thing.
I think all those issues like gay marriage will just go off the agenda now.
Well, apparently federal treasurer issues now. Well, no, Finance Minister Penny Wong is, well, she of course is a lesbian, so she's going to start pushing it. And there's a couple of people at the federal level who do want to do that. So we'll see.
So it'll remain on the federal agenda, but you won't hear about it in the state.
No, you certainly won't.
Just going back to Stephen Mayne, one thing people ought to remember that he was the personal assistant to Alan Stockdale when he was treasurer.
He was.
So he is a liberal.
Well, I know Stephen pretty well, and I can tell you his politics are very hard to pin down. What he believes in fundamentally, he hates poker machines.
Yep.
And to that extent, if he does win a seat in the upper house, like Andrew Wilkie in the federal parliament, he will push very, very heavily for the numbers to be limited, for betting constraints to be put on, and that sort of thing. So that's something Stephen believes, but to try and pin him down on his politics now is difficult because he does believe in a grab bag of issues. But Stephen, I mean, look, he runs in many elections. If he finally gets somewhere with this one, I think good luck to him. He's also on the Manningham City Council, so he'll have to resign from that. And then I wanted to ask you also about the cricket. I'm not a huge fan of cricket, but I noticed yesterday that Australia's singular inability to take a wicket in the second innings. What's gone wrong?
They were pathetic. They bowled very badly, and they couldn't catch. I mean,
now again, I don't know much about cricket, but being able to bowl and catch are fairly important parts of the game, aren't they?
Very important. No, I think they're going to have to make some changes. The Mitchell Johnson was exceptionally disappointing. He's probably been our #1 strike bowler.
I hear he's going to be dropped.
Yeah, it looks like it. And I think he needs a rest because he seems to have lost confidence. I see they've added 2 extra people into the squad to go to Adelaide. The second test starts on Friday, both bowlers. And I imagine the New South Welshman will get the nod there, but very worrying. And I don't know, the Adelaide track's usually the best batting wicket in Australia.
That's right.
And I can't see Australia getting England out twice. It remains to be seen whether England can get Australia out twice.
We will see.
All right, we wish Ted Bailey all the best. One last question to you, Tom, just on that. Do you think Brumby will stay or go?
Oh, he should resign. He's lost 2 state elections now, one in '96, one in 2010, but he may not want to trigger a by-election in his seat. So my prediction is he'll resign the leadership, but go to the backbench.
All right, I think that's probably right. I agree with you. All right, that's it for this week. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for watching.